recognized symbol of excellence for your entertainment.
Now I know why Disco died.
It didn't die, it's just been in the witness protection program.
Welcome to Machino Music Music, the show that puts some music in Machino music. With your host, me, Brett Strong. Today on Machino Music Music, it's When They Went Disco. Bands and artists that went disco. Good afternoon, everybody. When They Went Disco. That's what we're talking about here today. A while back, did When They Went New Wave. And last week did When They Went Heavy Metal. And I thought, hey, what the hell, let's do When They Went Disco. Now, I think about as many went disco as they did New Wave. I mean, heavy metal was a bit of a tricky one to do because, you know, kind of like the ones on there were already kind of sort of heavy metal or hard rock, as they called it then. Like 70s. But here we have people just jumping on that disco train, because disco, very much like New Wave became like in the 80s, was like, here's an opportunity, because essentially pop music, it's dance music. Here's an opportunity to get a hit. A big hit. A big crossover hit. Get that song playing in the disco. So yeah, When They Went Disco I think is appropriate. And a lot of these, again, it's sort of like just one song. Not so much an entire album, but some kind of did an entire album. We'll get into it here as we get into some of these. So let's start with some albums actually I don't own. I don't have to have in show and tell. How about James Brown? Yes, James Brown, the original Disco Man. Yeah. I learned about this album. I had no idea this existed until I watched that James Brown biography. That documentary, I think it was A&E that did that. So, yeah, they did. Yes, James Brown at some point in the 70s, late 70s, figured, hey, this disco is really big. I'm the original Disco Man. The only reason you like disco and you're dancing to disco is because of me, James Brown. Okay. I mean, he was the godfather of soul. You could call him like even like early rock and roll. He's definitely a rock and roll pioneer. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. People don't take the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame very seriously, but still, he's in there. He's considered a rock and roll pioneer, the hardest working man in show business, and here he is saying, "Hey, I'm the original Disco Man too." Yeah, and I gotta say, this is actually a really fun album. I do really enjoy this album. Could even be my favorite James Brown album just because of how ridiculous it is. I mean, the title track alone is so much fun. And look at him on that album cover. Sitting in a big wicker chair, one of those big thrones, saying, hey, you want to dance in this disco, you got to get through me, because I'm the original Disco Man. I was dancing before any of you knew what dancing was. So, yeah, there he is, the original Disco Man, James Brown. Pretty fun record. Ridiculous, but a lot of fun. All right, next one I want to talk about here. Another rock and roll pioneer, a Beatle. Yeah, Ringo Starr with his album Ringo the Fourth. Yeah. Now, I gotta say, as far as the Beatles solo stuff, of course, I'm a big Paul McCartney fan. Paul McCartney, Wings, love. George Harrison, huge George Harrison fan. Love his songs. John Lennon might be a little blasphemous to say, but I was never a huge fan of John Lennon's solo work. I mean, a lot of it I do really like, but maybe a little too much Yoko Ono. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of John Lennon's solo. And Ringo. Now we get to Ringo. And, Ringo had his moments. I mean, a lot of his solo, it's a lot of covers, a lot of, he did a lot of, doo-wop songs. And he actually had some big major hits, but I think it was mostly, cover tunes. And he could write, but he was not like he was a quirky writer. He got less of his songs than George Harrison got less of his songs on Beatles albums. George Harrison could write. But, Ringo, it's just kind of hit or miss with Ringo. I do like some of his solo records, some of his solo songs. But, this one, Ringo the Fourth, he's doing disco, getting on the disco thing. He's Drown in the Sea of Love was a song on it. Not bad. I mean, this whole album's really not very good. I mean, Ringo, I don't think, has the right energy as a singer to do disco. Because disco, you gotta have that big energy, you know? Ringo is just kind of like, it's like Perry Cuomo doing disco, that SCTV sketch.
Celebrate good times, come on.
Yeah, it's like that. Eugene Levy playing Perry Cuomo. it's sort of like that. It's very like, it's fun. I get what he's trying to do, but Ringo, stick with maybe the R&B covers and songs like that. It don't come easy, because now here you're calling yourself Ringo the Fourth. He's a lord. Well, he is now. He's Sir Ringo. He's the last Beatle to be knighted. But yeah, here he was calling himself Ringo the Fourth, and he's doing a disco album. But yeah, Ringo the Fourth, Ringo Starr going disco. All right, next one here. How about Chicago? Chicago 13. All their albums named after the number that they were, or at least most of them were, because before this they did Hot Streets, which is Chicago Hot Streets. Also, the first album was Chicago Transit Authority. But here they are doing disco. Mainly the song Street Player. Like, that's a real disco song. That's a real disco sounding song. Actually, one of my favorite Chicago tunes. I mean, I love Chicago. I mean, they got so many great songs. I always had that horn section, that really big horn section. So it kind of, can lend itself to disco. But Street Player, I think, is the most disco sounding of the songs on this. Paradise Alley's kind of disco. Reruns have a disco sound, but definitely Street Player. You're playing that at disco, everybody's like, oh, is this Chicago? This is the same band that did 25 or 6 to 4. Same band that did Saturday in the Park. Oh, I didn't know, but I like it. I'm dancing to it. I like it. Yeah, this is... But Chicago, this is post Terry Kath. I think Hot Streets was the first album without Terry Kath. Maybe one before that. Whatever one came before Hot Streets. I didn't look all this up, or I can't retain it in my head. I can retain a lot of useless information. I can't retain everything. I'm not a computer. But yeah, this definitely does not have Terry Kath. I don't think Terry Kath would be going along with disco. Although, however, even Chicago Transit Authority, the song "I'm a Man," for what it was, 1969, it kind of has a disco sound to it. Yeah, so that one, Chicago 13, definitely Street Player, total disco. All right, let's get into some albums that I have now. This was a big Rod Stewart. Do You Think I'm Sexy? I dropped water on this before I started, and it's dripping. Darn it. God damn it. Garbage it. I guess worse things could happen to it. See, that's why I take the plastic off when I show it, because it reflects and everything, and then I should have left the plastic on. Damn it, all the hell. But yeah, Rod Stewart, Blondes Have More Fun. This was his big disco record. This is what a lot of people kind of got mad with disco. And it's really just the one song, Do You Think I'm Sexy, which is a great, great song. But this was kind of like the thing, Rod Stewart? Come on, he's a rock and roller. Well, hey, he wanted that big crossover hit. And it is, a lot of the disco backlash, at least how we're looking back on it, it was very kind of racially driven, very kind of homophobic. It was a lot of that, whether it was, people doing it at the time, it doesn't look, looking back, it's kind of I think there was a bit of that, even if it wasn't completely on the surface. But it was just like, but guys like Rod Stewart going disco. It's just like, okay. But really, other than that one song, all of this sounds like just a standard Rod Stewart record. Like Blondes Have More Fun, the title track, that's just a class. That's a great rock song. Ain't Love a Bitch. Scarred and Scared, which was the flip side of Do You Think I'm Sexy? It just sounds like Rod Stewart. Attractive Female Wanted, Dirty Weekend. I mean, these are just your classic, Rod Stewart rock tunes. It's just like the one song was disco, so that's it. Put him in the garbage bin. He's disco now. But he's still looking like this. hey, how you doing, Rod? Yeah, but Blondes Have More Fun. And he was trying to have some more fun. Just cut the guy a break. He wanted to do a disco tune, and he was very successful with it. One of the only songs people talk about when they talk about Rod Stewart is that song, Do You Think I'm Sexy? It's one of his great songs. And this was another big one. The Bee Gees. I grabbed a couple Bee Gees records. This was the most backlash was against the Bee Gees. Here's the big one that started the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. I mean, this sunk them for a while. People were mad at the Bee Gees. Oh, damn the Bee Gees. I mean, they were the Antichrist. They were the worst thing going. And like before, they were like a Beatles sounding band. I mean, you listen to an album like Mr. Natural. Fantastic album. Sounds like a Lost Beatles album. I mean, the harmonies. I mean, the band they were in the 60s, very different than what they became, but I mean, a lot of people were mad, and they turned on the Bee Gees because of this record. I mean, Staying Alive is a massive hit. I mean, you have Night Fever on here. Night Fever's so good. Love Night Fever. Yeah, so you had stuff like that. What else is on here that, what was it? Of course, Jive Talking, which was on the main course album, which started going in the disco direction. I mean, Nights on Broadway is definitely kind of a disco type of tune. More Than a Woman. I mean, this is... Then, of course, they had this one, Children of the World album, which also had You Should Be Dancing, which was also in the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. There's a lot of disco on. Boogie Child. Subway, really cool. It's actually one of my favorite Bee Gees tunes is Subway. I really like that song. But yeah, they still got the disco beat going on, and of course that carried over into this record. Spirits Having Flown. Tragedy is on here. Tragedy was like the big, huge disco hit. Also just recently got a new life and was used in the Beetlejuice sequel, Beetlejuice. Kind of a waste of that song, to be honest. I didn't, going on a tangent here, I didn't hate Beetlejuice, but I gotta say, it just proved that Beetlejuice is an impossible movie to make a sequel to, a satisfying sequel to. And a lot of disco in there. You had the MacArthur Park, and that's kind of a disco tune, although more the Donna Summer version, but even the Richard Harris original's kind of got a disco feel to it. There's a lot of disco in that movie. But it really brought back Tragedy in a big way. And that's a great tune. Love me some Bee Gees. But they were the Antichrist. They were like, oh, no, not the Bee Gees. Just recently saw an interview. I was getting ready to do this episode. And it was Barry Gibb, like in the 80s, like just mad. Because, he, like the Bee Gees were just not allowed to like even exist as a band anymore. Because they'd done disco, because of Saturday Night Fever. And after the Disco Demolition Night, which was a huge disaster, interrupts an entire ball game just because some jerk, some radio DJ from Chicago, Steve Dahl, wants to blow up disco records. Ruin an entire baseball game. A doubleheader, too. Had to get rid of they canceled the entire game, ended in forfeit. They canceled the other header. It was over. It was terrible. Waste. But yeah, the Bee Gees had a hard time kind of existing after the backlash too. But now people are back around and love those songs. So what does that tell you? Yeah, so the Bee Gees, have to mention the Bee Gees. They were kind of the big one as far as backlash goes. This one came up in my research. I don't know. I thought I mentioned it because I was looking for albums, and this one was brought up. David Bowie, Young Americans. Now, I don't really think of this as disco. It's mainly the song Fame, which is considered a disco song. I mean, this is 1975. Yeah. Yeah, it's not written on the back, and I'm trying to jog my memory. I do have it written down, 1975. So it's kind of like before disco's big explosion, which is more 76, 77, especially by 77 with Saturday Night Fever. And yeah, we have David Bowie. Apparently the song Fame is considered disco. I really like that song, but I don't know if I really consider it. I guess you could dance to it. It's probably played in discos. People didn't mind. Young Americans kind of has a disco feel to it, but really this is just David Bowie. It's his Blue-Eyed Soul album. Doing kind of a little bit of white boy R&B here. He did a bit of everything, Bowie. He was definitely a big influence on what would become new wave. He was a big influence on punk. I do a whole David Bowie show. Why haven't I? That's gonna happen one of these days.
One of these days!
Yeah, so David Bowie kind of did a bit of everything. And yeah, this is apparently considered his disco album. Even though it's really only the song Fame and maybe kind of sort of Young Americans. Yeah, Bowie did a bit of everything. How about the Stones? Yeah, the Rolling Stones got on the disco train. And again, this one, mainly the song Miss You. People were surprised I first heard Miss You. It got that disco beat on it. Miss You was like the big disco song off here. And even kind of sort of Beast of Burden, which is my favorite Rolling Stones song. Love that song. Has that, kind of has a bit of a disco groove. But I think that's just a great rock song. But actually, this is my favorite Rolling Stones album, so another chance to talk about it. But this I almost included on my This is actually my favorite Rolling Stones album. It gives me a chance to talk about it. But I actually almost included this on When They Went New Wave. Because this is also kind of considered the Rolling Stones doing new wave. Because I guess a song like, When the Whip Comes Down, Before They Make Me Run, Shattered, has a bit of kind of a new wave. Even like on like Respectable, kind of got that punk feel to it. It's like, so, they kind of were doing a bit of that, like the punk new wave. But I guess Miss You was the big one. You still hear that song on the radio today, one of the biggest Stones songs, and they're considered their disco song. But the Rolling Stones did a bit of everything. They were one of those bands that everybody was like, nobody minded. It was the Stones, the Rolling Stones. Everyone loves the Rolling Stones. Got to do another Stones show. Why haven't I done I'm waiting for an important phone call, so I'm a little frazzled. If it seems like I am, it's because, I've been waiting for kind of a phone call. So, I mean, the phone could ring any moment, and I'll be really thrown off. But we're almost done here, so, yeah. Blondie, Parallel Lines, another big one. I got an itch right here. There's fluffs flying around the studio all the time because the big bright light's on. I got a fluff like right in my nose. It's really annoying. But, yeah, Blondie, Parallel Lines. Now this one was mainly, again, one song, Heart of Glass. Probably the biggest Blondie song. Like a song, if anybody thinks of Blondie, then think of that song. It's actually one of my all-time favorite songs. A song I never get tired of, even though I probably should be tired of it. I just still love it. And yeah, but that was the song where people were like, "Hey, I thought Blondie were a punk band." They were still considered a punk band at the time. And here they are doing a disco song. Well, they wanted to get on. And they were doing a variation of Heart of Glass. And as early as 1978, Once I Had a Love, a.k.a. the disco song. There's also, I think, another earlier version. That was from 1977 for Plastic Letters. And it was kind of had a bit more of a... It wasn't even really a disco, just maybe the beat was, but it kind of had a bit of a reggae kind of feel to it. Like it was... But then they went full, of course, with Heart of Glass, just made it full out disco. But it doesn't take itself seriously. Like, you can tell they're having fun with it. So Blondie... I mean, people kind of gave Blondie a pass. Again, I think it's because a hot chick. I mean, look at that. Look at Debbie Harry. Hot chicks can get away with anything. That's why people kind of gave them a break. But really, other than that one song, I mean, this is definitely like pretty well a straightforward Blondie punk / new wave. But they are adding a bit more, going definitely a bit more in the new wave direction here. Adding a bit more synthesizers and stuff like that. And a song like Fade Away and Radiate, definitely very, very new wave. But yeah, Heart of Glass, if you like kind of don't know the rest of the album, that's the thing, people get these albums thinking, oh, I think it's going to sound like disco, and then it's like, what the hell is this? I mean, like, Hanging on the Telephone is like a total punk song. So, I think a lot of people are kind of surprised by the rest of these records. And kind of the big one, this was the one that really kind of turned people, very much like the Bee Gees, people jumped off. Kiss, Dynasty, I Was Made for Lovin' You. A lot of Kiss fans. A lot of Kiss fans just jumped off. This is 1979. Disco's, disco starting to die out a bit. But Kiss got their disco song in there. And actually, Gene Simmons will tell you that this was the first rock disco song. Actually, it wasn't, because there'd be no Kiss without Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper on this record, Go to Hell, did the song You Gotta Dance, second track on this record. And it's a disco song. But nobody gave Alice Cooper much hell, because this is a concept record. Not considered one of his best. I actually really like this album. But, yeah, he actually went disco before Kiss. And this is 1976, so he was right there at the beginning of disco. But here's Kiss, 1979. I Was Made for Lovin' You. People jumped off the Kiss train. I did the hell with this band. They're doing disco now. And then when they did their farewell concerts, later it was a big, huge hit for them. People are dancing to. They bring a big disco ball down, and everyone's like having a good time. Oh, it's all in the past. Who cares? It's Kiss. So, that's what's so weird. Even having like with that was a big spit I just did right there. Happened with Rod Stewart, happened with the Bee Gees. People like they don't care. I guess people like it's like things are less divisive. And it's just sort of people kind of you know what? Life's too short. Life's too short to hate these bands for something. And you know what? The songs are actually a lot of fun and really catchy. Take Me Back. Everyone says Take Me Back. They may have hated it at the time. They were young and stupid. Now they realize, you know what? I hate things now. Take me back to that great time. That's what happens with a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I Was Made for Loving You. Sure Knows Something's actually got a disco feel to it. And of course the song Dirty Livin' I think is very disco. The only song Peter Criss appears on. The rest of this album is all Anton Fig. But really the rest of this, it sounds like a very, it's like a Kiss album. I mean, because 2000 Man, great Ace Frehley contribution. Rolling Stones cover, great song. Magic Touch, Hard Times, Charisma. Some great songs on here. I mean, the production on most of them maybe has them if it's more crispy, kind of more like it's at that kind of that disco overproduced, but I would say really only those three tunes, I Was Made for Loving You, Sure Know Something, and Dirty Livin', is about as disco as you get on this, and the rest of this is just a great rockin' Kiss record. Especially the Ace contributions. So there you go. That is When They Went Disco. Maybe a few more I maybe forgot to mention or didn't mention. Maybe I can think of some others. But I think that's kind of all of the sort of when they went I could do. There might be some others, but I thought, new wave, heavy metal, and disco were kind of the three big ones. I mean, I guess I could maybe do like when they went country, but why would I want to do that? Yeah. No offense to the country music fans, I just don't think I have it in me to do when they went country. Yeah. So there you go. If you're a fan of any of these albums, you're a disco fan. If you maybe jumped off the train with a lot of these, maybe came back around on some of these songs, whatever your deal is, whatever your stance is on disco and these bands and when they went disco, I hope you enjoyed this. That's it for this week. Until we meet again, this is Brett Strong saying good journey.